I'm gonna open the meeting. It's 6:09. Call the meeting to order. First, we have the consent agenda. But I feel like I'm gonna reorganize the agenda so that we have board business at the end, which is to appoint a board member, Rick Bartholomew's replacement. And I think I'm gonna move that at the top of the agenda. So, I can say I've sat on many boards, and to get people interested in community service is hard. There are many board seats across our towns. And so I was so happy when Akua said that she was interested in participating in the board. So, I don't know, do you want to introduce yourself to the open meeting and then
Sure.
appoint?
I'll just go high level. As I mentioned, my name is Akua Smith. I am a mother of 4, 2 students that are at Enosburg, one in elementary in the 3rd grade and one in the 8th grade at the middle school. So, and I moved to Enosburg about 1.5 years ago. Once moving here, had such a desire to be involved in the schools that my children were attended that I started and have been substitute teaching at both the middle and the elementary school, where Jen Hubbard mentioned to me this opportunity and my possible fit. So really excited to be on the board. I actually work for Cigna Healthcare, which is a Fortune 500 healthcare company. I'm an account executive. So I moved here to manage the state of Vermont and all of our business relationships within the state. So very excited to be a part. Love education. Feel that it's a very important part, as you all do, of our society, and want to do everything I can to help make the Enosburg and Richford educational systems the best that they can be.
Perfect. We're just happy to have you. So, so at this point, I would entertain a motion to appoint Akua as, to fill Rick Bartholomew's board seat.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, I have the motion. All in favor, say, oh, I need to take roll. Shaylee?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Mort?
Aye.
And I am an
You
aye.
also have Devin now.
Oh, I do have Devin.
You have Devin.
Oh, Devin, yay, hi. If you would like to, did you hear the motion to appoint the board member, Devin?
I did, and I vote aye.
Oh, thank you. So, welcome, Akua. So now Morgan is going to have you sign the oath, and then you'll be a participating member.
I do.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will faithfully execute the office of school board director for the state of Vermont and will bear right and justice to all persons to the best of your judgment and ability according to law, so help you God, or under the terms of the office of board?
I do.
Perfect. So sign twice.
Thank you very much.
All right, are we set?
We're
We're ready to
set.
roll.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Shaylee and Devin. If you wanna keep zooming, you're fine. If not, we'll see you when you get here. So that brings us to the previous minutes. If we take a look. If there is no conversation or changes, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Mort makes the motion. All in favor, say aye. Although now I'm thinking if Akua wasn't at the last one. So maybe, I'm gonna wait to the
And you
minutes.
still need to do roll because you have Devin.
I have Devin. I might wait on the minutes until Devin gets here.
I approve.
Oh, you do? Okay. Gosh, you're such a multitasker. Okay. So Sarah?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Mort?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Sorry, I'm a little disjointed here. Okay, so that brings us to the policy readings, and we have first readings, which is use of school facilities, recognition of visitors at board meetings, policy of non-discriminatory mascots and school branding, policy on section 504 and 88 grievance protocol for students and staff. And so, the first reading, if you went through the policies, you'll see that all the changes are in blue. Anything not in blue was not a change. So if anybody has any questions or comments regarding the first reading. And for those of you, so a first reading of a policy, we get to give feedback and it comes back for a second reading. So it's not a final done, but if you just have any feedback that you'd like to give, you're welcome to give it now, or anybody for that matter. I can speak to some of the changes too. The use of school facilities, what was added was around charging for when you need to use the facilities and you require pretty significant tech help. So like the auditorium and lighting, that was added because people were being brought in to have to run those events. And so now there is a charge for that. Let's see. Recognition of visitors, very few changes. Basically saying that the board chair will set the recognition of visitors protocol. And then policy on non-discriminatory mascots and school branding. This was taken from a model policy from Vermont School Boards Association. And so you can see the only change was our name. And then policy section 504 and 88 grievance, also a model policy. Only thing changed was our name. And participation of home study students, and the definition of a home study student was added. And transgender and, oh, that's second reading. Oh, I'll go through it while I'm here. Transgender and gender nonconforming students, this also is a model policy given to us by Vermont School Boards Association, aligned with statute. And use of school facilities procedures, you can see just the word designee was added. I think that's it. Yeah. So, going to the first readings, anybody have any questions or comments on those? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the first reading.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Mort has made the motion. I'll take a roll. Devin?
Aye.
Okay. Sarah?
Aye.
Akua?
Aye.
Mort?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Second reading is the home studies students, where that definition was added. Transgender and gender nonconforming, adopted as the model policy. Any questions or comments on those policies? Having none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Sarah has made the motion. I'll take a roll. Devin?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Akua?
Aye.
And Mort?
Aye.
And I am an aye. And then informational only was, the procedures of how to use school facilities. Okay, so other than that, is there any other agenda prioritization you needed to do?
No.
Okay, so that brings us to school spotlight with Enosburg Elementary School. Oh, sorry, recognition of visitors. Do I have any? I jumped over that.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Hi, visitors.
You want to come over this way?
Are you part of
Sure.
the spotlight, or are you
Yeah,
part of the
we're here for
recognition?
the spotlight.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Can we just sit among the table? Are you okay if we just?
Watch out, Lisa.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
I
whatever
forgot
you
to
need
play.
to do.
It's an obstacle course as well as the board meeting.
Sorry.
So that brings us to school spotlight.
So, we just wanted to share with you, we have some exciting things, happening instructionally at Enosburg Elementary, and as much as we would love to have everybody come join us, we know that everybody's busy and can't always get in to see what we have going on. So we thought we'd just give you a little snippet of some of the instructional practices that are happening at Enosburg Elementary School. So I'm pleased to have Tanya Caswell. She is our math leader and interventionist, and Kim St. Pierre, and she is our 5th grade teacher, and also Lisa Robdoy, who is our reading specialist and interventionist. Hi.
Welcome all of you.
Thank
Glad to
you.
have you here.
Thanks. So do you want to just jump in? All right, well, I'll start. We're just wanted to talk a little bit about what are some things that are happening for literacy. And one of the things that we're really working hard on is that consistency within the literacy block. And we really try to think about the pillars of early literacy. Sometimes you might have heard it talked about the strands of a rope and all of the pieces and parts that are needed for that literacy block and things that children need to have. So one of the components that's been really the most consistent and really I think has made a lot of changes is the foundations, which is a whole class phonics instruction. Phonics is explicitly taught to students and they're taught the rules. And that really helps them with reading, it helps them with decoding words, but also within their written work too. And we've just seen a lot of really nice success in K through 3 with that happening, and we're seeing some pretty good results, you know, overall in reading. So anyway, I just put up the 5 pillars just so that you could see what they are. Foundations really does focus on the phonemic awareness, students being able to hear and isolate sounds, and then the phonics, teaching those rules. That's really a big part of the program. So Courtney, if you can go to the next slide. We have a few videos here, and 2 of the videos are students actually using foundations in the classroom. They're really quick, so we'll pull those up in just a minute. And then the 3rd video is something else that I've been trying to work on, is getting students to talk about books, getting them to get some excitement around some books that they've been reading. So I've been doing videos. I can't quite get to it weekly right now. It's been quite busy, but it was a goal to do it weekly. So we've had groups of students gather in my room and they just talk about some of their favorite books. So I'll show you that snippet, and that's pretty fun. So I did have to queue up, I think the first video you can start right off, Courtney, that top video.
I might have to stop my sharing for a moment.
Okay. It's pretty far away, so.
I love that Colin is trying to make sense of those words, because when we build words, we do want them to have meaning. They do mean something, so
You're
you're
building
right.
the
We
word
think it's-
puff, so I know it's hard to see. The video's from pretty far away.
Lexi. Okay. She sounds like she's good to go. All right, have a seat. Let's check out your work.
Okay, so what they're doing is they're learning about the floss rule. And so they're learning that the word puff is spelled with 2 F's at the end, and it's really specific instruction for them. And that's gonna help them as they're spelling words like fill and miss. And while it might seem simple to us, it is not for children. And as they get going with reading and writing, it just becomes more fluent for them. So that was an example of them doing that. Now students can use magnetic boards to do that phonics work, or do it in front of the class on the smartboard, and a lot of classes choose to do that. In the second video, the students are actually gonna tap that word out. So you'll see them tap it and isolate the sound. So it's quick.
All right. So Lexi, tell us why you decided to put 2 F's at the end.
Because it has the end of the word has F. So if it's the end of the word and it's F, you have to put a double F.
That's right. If it's a short vowel, right, and U is a short vowel, this is a closed syllable word. Nice job.
It makes sense with the wrong sound.
Right? Thank you, Lexi, good job. Let's tap this word out. So everyone can sit and we'll tap this word out. Let's tap the word.
All right, you can stop.
One tap for the F. Remember?
So that's one thing we're doing. There's a lot of other things that we're doing, but that's been the most successful, I think, for consistency in our school. And then the third video is just a quick little snippet of, we won't show the whole thing because it's quite long. If you can just start it, it's a lot to ask, but at the 27-second mark, that would
Yes.
All right, I'm with some first grade.
just sort of gets my voice out of there.
First grade, my book is called Animal Dads, and it's a nonfiction book.
Can you hold the book up so we can see what it looks like? All right, tell us a little bit about this book.
What I like about this book is that it has some pretty cute things like polar bears and baby foxes and even eagles, and it even the animals that can be a little dangerous. We're gonna know about animal dads, and my favorite page is this one, the baby flamingo.
Oh, you like that page?
I like that page because the mommy is feeding it, and it looks like a little chick, and it's very cute. So it's my favorite page.
So I heard you say something about this. This book is mostly about animal dads
Yeah.
and how they take care of
They're siblings.
they're little kids, right? They're
Yeah.
little babies.
Yeah. In this book, it calls them. I'm gonna try to find the page. They call it They're Young.
Oh, I love that. Look at the details you pulled out of that book. Beautiful job.
And I know in the black words, I think.
So she goes on to talk about how the word is in bold because it's an important word. These are things kids are learning in the classroom. Like this is a first grader talking about the books that she's been reading. And so that's the goal for us, is to just continue with those, having kids share what they're learning from books.
All right. So Lexi, tell us why you. All right, I'm with some first grade reader. I love that.
So at our elementary school for math, our program that uses bridges, and we've been really successful with that from K to 5. But what I thought was unique about what's going on in grade 5 right now with Kim as the classroom teacher is she's running a thinking classroom, which following our program, this is a structure to get kids to talk about math together and work collaboratively, and also to form their own learning around the topic. And so this is a structure that Kim has put in place. So there's 3, I think I might have you talk about it a little bit before we show the snippets.
Yeah. So last spring, I read this really great book, Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics. And it got me thinking about how I was teaching, really in a traditional way of I do, we do, you do, and where I do most of the talking, and I do showing how to do things, following whatever program that we're using, it doesn't matter. And so there was a lot of aha, like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I do. I had these great anchor charts that kids are just looking at and mimicking what's on it, but then they can't really do it on their own. So there's 14 practices in here, and I started using it at the end of the year last year with students. And so it gets kids up, like right away at a board, a vertical board, standing in groups of 3 that are random groupings. Every day it's a different group of kids. I click shuffle and you get what you get. And so kids are like within the first 5 minutes of class have a task, a math task that's open-ended so that even your most struggling students, so it's thin sliced questions that they have to think about. And even the most struggling learners can access some part of it. And each group of students is responsible for making sure that the whole team knows how to problem solve these questions. So sometimes they're leaders of the group and they're helping to teach their peers. Sometimes they're the struggler and they need a lot of support from their group. And my role then just becomes going around and asking good questions about, well, how did you solve that? There's one marker at every board, so one person does the writing, the thinking for the team. And so we're only like, what, 45, 46 days in, so they're doing really well working collaboratively as a group of 3. So this is a problem set that I put up, so as soon as one group finished the first question, and we had been working about fractions within $1, so thinking about $1. And then when somebody finishes, then I click on the next one, and then any adult that's in there is wandering around answering questions. So that's what each one of, I think that the videos themselves speak for themselves around what's happening.
And they're pretty quick.
Yeah.
So 15 plus 15. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Yes, I totally get the 25. That's not 36. It's 105. Yeah, good job. What are we counting by? Yep. No, it's 105. Yes, please.
Which one is the first one? 1/5. So how did you get 1/4? Because you have a marker, so you explain how. How did you get 1/4? 1/5 is plus 1/20 is 1/4.
1/5 is 20 cents.
20 cents. Why is it 20 cents? How do you know it's 20 cents? How do you know that 1/5 of $1 is 20 cents?
So in this one, this student could tell what was written, but couldn't explain how he knew a fifth of $1 is 20 cents. But the other student did know.
Did you understand that? So why is 1/5 equal to 20 cents of $1? All right, you do some teaching, because right now he needs to understand why this is 20 cents. And then make sure he understands why this is 5 cents, and then I'll come back to you, okay? Okay, so 1/5 is how much?
It's 1/5. It equals 20 because it's
So 1/5 is how much?
it equals 100. And it's the same as these.
You broke
And then they
apart.
actually ended up putting their money pieces and, so they really understood how he came about that answer.
The thing I like most about listening when this is happening is that hum, like you can hear the hum of all the kids sort of talking about math. I think a lot of times we think we go in classrooms and it's quiet and we're like, ooh, they're all working. But it's nice that they're all talking about math.
Yeah, it's noisy, it's messy.
Yeah.
It's, but everyone is in, there used to be a lot of fooling around in groups to begin with until we set the expectations of what's happening. And now, I mean, there's little, like, they're all engaged in the task that they're doing.
And they know where manipulatives are, and so if they need to, they run over and they get them, and they're like, no, this is what I mean, and they're moving things around. I think it works on all those different kinds of intelligences. You know, you've got the, like you said, they're standing at the board, it's active.
Like this one, 1/5, you need 20. Wait, what? 5 20s to make 100, and you need 25 to make 100. So 20 cents minus 5 cents, 16 cents, or 1,500.
I have a question. So how, I guess on both sides, what kind of measure are you gonna do to see if your strategies are working? I'm curious.
I'm always giving little, in here, so
Yeah.
in here, they're called check for understanding. So
Yeah.
any work that I give to them, they now know, like, this isn't a test. This
Right.
is, you're checking for your own understanding. Do you, and I give them answer keys. Here you do, check it. Were you right? Were you wrong? This is not for you. This is for me. Of course it is for me too. So I know where I need to go next. But this is only one part of my math class. Oftentimes it's part of the lesson, or it could be the launch at the beginning where I give them yesterday and today. So we're doing the unusual baker, and this baker makes cakes every day. But every day, the cake is the same size, but he cuts it into a different fractional piece. Every cake is $10. And so that was our launch yesterday. We did 3 together. And then today, we quickly reviewed what we did, and then it went right to the board. They finished making it, they're making a poster. So I'm observing while I'm going around and making notes about who's struggling, who gets it, who's the one doing the teaching, and who's the one who needs a little extra support. And I always try to make sure that the first question is something that everybody has some kind of access point to. So, but I'm always, this is only one part of my math class.
Right.
So, but I'm always giving some sort of check for your
Just to
understanding.
see if you're seeing growth with the strategy.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and that's true about the literacy too, the phonics piece. There that was one tiny little portion, so that those phonics lessons are about 30 minutes. But within that time, you're doing a variety of things. That was just one piece of it, and you are doing just what Kim said. You're doing some observations, perhaps. Definitely noting when kids. There's some sound drills that you do. So there's a lot of times kids actually can't hear those sounds. They might be pointing to different letters when you're giving the sound of a short I sound. It's really tricky when you're comparing it to a short E sound. So you're just noting those things, and then there are assessments. There's quick little exit tickets that you might give, and then there are whole unit assessments too. So there's a variety.
Another way we could assess, and when you first started today, I thought it's interesting, we're very well aligned. In one of my board reports today, like ironically, we didn't plan this. So as part of the board monitoring plan, we were to look at the PASS assessment, but I kind of mistimed that. So the PASS assessment doesn't have to be completed until the first week of December, but what we do have is access to the PASS assessment from last year. So we can compare more explicit phonics, phonological awareness instruction this year, because we've reinvested in foundations and it's consistently being adopted. We could look at how does PASS compare from last year's data to this year's data.
And that's kind of where I was going here, because foundations, bridges, like we have in these strategies or these curriculums that we use, it's like, how do we know we're actually gonna meet our board goals, or how do we know we're actually gonna get growth out of it? And So
And
it's that piece,
We
yeah.
actually, when we have PLCs, we plan by the standards and the priority standards, and then we look at our program as a resource. And so that's how we kind of keep track of the priority standards and also how the kids are doing. So,
Cool, I love it.
Thank you all for
Yeah,
coming in
that
to
was
share that,
awesome.
that was great.
Yes. Awesome, anybody have any questions or anything?
Joe.
Sit down.
Can you tell she's a teacher?
I know.
Thank you.
Having done, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're gonna go to Morgan and the financial update. Now, I will say, is it, who didn't have a SU email yet? So, thank you, Morgan. He's got, okay, good.
So
those
these
links
are
are
hard copies of what went out to
Perfect.
almost everyone.
Actually, can I have a hard copy?
You sure can.
Or even, do you also have the, I think I have it in my packet, financial? No, it's
Financial words that go-
the financial, yes, that piece.
Are you talking about what you got in your email today?
No, I am talking about some of the,
I can work on getting that.
You can project it.
okay, or I could just look, for maybe a first one on later or something. Okay. Or project it, whichever you prefer.
All right. So the first thing that I want to put out is an appeal for folks to look at the warrant emails that come from the bookkeepers. Got a couple that are still missing some signatures dated October 28th. We've got 2 polys on them and 2 separate warrants,
So,
but we need somebody else to.
okay, so that's what I almost, can I put in a request? When they're looking for one request, like if they say we have one signature and we're looking for one more, can they say what signature they have?
Probably,
Because
so that you're not.
I'm
doing
not
the same
approving
one
them,
over and over and over
like,
again.
because they're just dates, I don't know, and then I have SU and ERU, and I'm like, I think I approved that one, not sure if I approved that one. So, yeah, if they could say who has already signed it, that would be awesome.
We can do that. And Akua, for your benefit, these will be coming out by email, and they're basically permission for us to release the checks that we write each week.
Yes, so when you approve the email, the warrant, then they'll pay.
So,
And, oh, sorry. And if you have any questions at all, they're super good about, if you're like, what's this charge, or what's this for, they definitely will respond.
so the financial reports now seem to be going out to everyone directly by email, and I will add you to that, Akua. I had mentioned in my packet that we sent out the first semester of tuition bills and sort of where we were, a little shy of what we thought we would budget. Not close enough, or not far enough, I think, that we need to be worried yet. Since I sent those out, there were, I think, 3 kiddos that we had billed an MV for, and an MV pushed back because there was a parent that actually lived in either Enosburg-Richford. And so in those cases, if you have a parent resident in your town, you don't get to bill a sending town for that.
Okay.
So a little bit lower.
A little bit lower? Like, did I get the numbers wrong?
Maybe our definition of
Little bit.
It's a little different than,
I
personal
had that
checking
reaction too, it's
yeah.
semester, so double.
Oh,
I was looking at it as.
Yeah,
the
well,
first
that's
number
only
is
the
the
first
year,
half. Yeah.
okay.
You did the
Cause I
same
was
thing I
like,
did.
it's kinda half. Yeah,
Okay.
okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
And we will probably add a few kids as the year goes on, especially with the program that Allison Witherspoon is running at Richford High School. That's the one through the Vermont Virtual Learning Cooperative, where kids can access those classes by registering in Richford and attending virtually. So we have maybe 6 kids, 7 kids who are doing that from across the state, and they don't seem to follow the same enrollment schedule. I think for the most part they're coming out of homeschooling or some other alternative type program to join that. So we may get a few more kids there.
Okay.
If there are any questions on that report, I can try to answer them, and I can, as always, answer them offline. And then, Kua, once you're set up, I will send you that, that report as well for the last month.
Okay,
Sounds
Just
good.
give it to
you did,
Yeah.
okay. And just so that everybody's kind of reading it the same way, and I might need reminded. So adopted budget, current budget, year to date. And then what is the ENC/received?
Encumbrances, so those are expenses that the system is pretty sure that we're gonna pay by the end of the year.
Okay,
It's really relevant for your contracted salaries.
Right.
So it knows how much we're gonna pay each year teachers.
okay,
Has a pretty good guess how much it's gonna pay your paraeducators.
okay. But it doesn't actually play into the variance, or does it?
It would, yes.
Wait. So the adopted,
Rather than just explode.
the current, and year-to-date actual.
So year-to-date actual is what we've actually spent through the end of October.
Oh, and then we're assuming we're gonna pay the encumbrance.
Right.
I got you. And then that gets us our number. Okay. Okay. I don't think I have any questions.
Right?
Do you have any questions? Not yet,
You
because
wanna
we're gonna
reach me?
start digging in next month, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Exactly.
okay.
All right, and I'm gonna pull up your slideshow again. I think I'm gonna share tab rates, is that correct? Yeah. Okay, so again, this is, I'll be walking you through a slideshow which we will tweak to use for the February informational meetings.
Okay.
Just kind of pulling you through it, and we can add this, add or subtract to it as we go along,
Okay.
just to help direct our conversation here. The development schedule is relatively unchanged. We are at November 8th. So on December 1st, which will be before your next board meeting, we will get the yield proposal from the tax commissioner. And new for you and review for the rest of you, the yield number is one of the 4 numbers that goes into calculating your residential tax rate. So as we develop the budget, look at expenses, and predict revenues, we will keep in mind these numbers as we come up with a budget that you as the board is comfortable of moving forward. And we'll look at where that's gonna land with proposed tax rates. That's really the only useful number that you're gonna have before your next board meeting. And so that December 13th meeting will be bringing you a more complete picture of the expense side of your budget. Tonight we'll focus primarily on staff, which is 90% of your budget. And then I'll keep highlighting this. Board petitions for the March election are due on January 30th. The 2 seats that are up for election in March are Mort and the one that you just filled. So assuming that you want to do this again, you'll need to get a petition in to the clerk by January 30th.
And can you remind number of signatures?
I believe it's 50.
50?
And it's
Because
from
it's a
either town.
combination of the two?
It could be as low as 30,
I
but
thought it was 30.
I want to say, and it may have been that we got different guidance from different clerks.
I think it's 30.
I think it's 30 per town, but we
Does it depend on if you are getting mixed signatures?
Because we can't get mixed signatures, can we?
You can.
You can?
You can now?
Yep.
I
Anyone
thought
who
it
can
was
vote
only
for
for a
you,
town.
because it's voted across the entire district. You can get signatures from either district,
Oh,
either town
either
in
town.
that district.
Any limitations on the village, town and
Nope.
village? Okay. And one last question, is the petition, is there a standard format?
It's
So I can just print it
online
out.
and I can email that to you.
Great.
There's a time limit. You're not supposed to collect them, I think, before January 1st.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ah.
There are a lot of little rules that I don't think ever come into play unless somebody decides they're gonna read the rule book and they contest any
Right.
interpretation, but we do try to figure them out, so.
I mean, it's not like I'm pre-planning, but, that's interesting.
Yes, you are.
No. I think I'm always like running around the day before going, I need these signatures, but, so it's not like I'm planning ahead, for sure.
That's how most people do it.
Okay.
So we talked a little bit about having some general budget objectives, and this is going to be more for your informational meeting. I've got the 3 board-approved goals up there. We can certainly tweak the wording if you want to, or go in a different direction if you want to. And then I put on continued examination of the inequities between the 2 high schools, because that was one of the drivers of our budget conversation last year. But this is really your document to use to help us and help the principals develop your budget. Additional considerations have not really changed. I've not added to this since your last meeting. Increased social emotional needs. Act 127, which will come into effect next budget year, is likely to give you a pretty significant increase in your tax capacity. So for the same tax rate, you're going to be able to raise a lot more money for your schools. Roughly at that same time, COVID funding will expire. We've talked certainly at the SU level about some of the positions that we have funded out of that ESSER grant, and as those grants go away, the 3 boards are going to have to make decisions on whether to move those staff into the local budget or to change those positions. Act 173 is, in my mind, is the change to the special ed funding formula. I know that there's a lot of other stuff in that bill that
Yeah.
people who
But
care
that's
about
the
educating
nut of
kids
it.
care about.
Yes.
And they're significant as well, but the act is increasing the amount of money that we have available to spend on special education, and it is opening the definition of what we call special education, so more flexibility with that funding as well. Talked a little bit about the PCB testing. We are still waiting to hear from the test that was conducted at Richford Elementary. Those were due back 3 weeks ago, and I think that's how it's going to roll, and the timelines will probably get later and later as other schools are tested. Enosburg Elementary will be next up, and then your 2 high schools in Cold Hollow are in the last cohort to be tested, so that will be a while.
So do you happen to know if we're on the same test schedule, because they were gonna come in around Thanksgiving break, or because there's been a delay here, will they be later, or do you know?
I assume they're actually going to deliver the cans on Thanksgiving break. That's that's the step that Kelly's already been through at Richford Elementary, and it was supposed to be 3 to 4 weeks out from the day that they collected them. We're 6 out by now, or we're hearing 6?
Yeah, it was the end of September.
Okay. So,
Do we have a list, and this may just be a question of ignorance or not knowing, but do we have a list of the positions that are specifically federally funded with maybe the cost, or?
we do at the supervisor union level, so that board, at their next meeting, will be doing a similar look-through on staffing. And because they're in grants, they kind of fall in a different arena in terms of budgeting, because the voters are really focused on the general fund budget. But we are having those conversations with the SU board.
Okay.
I'm trying to give them a heads up on what those different positions are and what the possibilities that we see are in terms of either other grants that could cover them in the future, or whether it would make sense to either move them to the supervisor union budget or to the local budgets directly.
Okay, and at that time, we would get like that list that they have, or do we?
You mean at this board here?
Yes.
Yeah, I think what would happen is your reps on the SU board, when they come back and we start going through that budget planning, will say, just making this up, but the home to school coordinators are funded and ESSER funding is going away. Is that something that we want to keep as a locally funded position and hire them at the district or the school level? Is that something we think is better with at the supervisory union level, where there's more flexibility to deploy them to different schools? Or is that something where, you know, we feel like the need has changed, or there's a better use of money that year?
So you're saying that those positions currently sit at the SU level, and so the chain is gonna be SU, do you want these? And that SU may say, yes on this one, no on this one, ask if local wants it.
It's not gonna be kind of A, B, C, D in that order. It's
Okay.
gonna be us bringing that to all the boards,
All
okay?
boards, okay.
In FY '24, you know, we are already talking with the SU board about, Vern is funded half in ESSER. We wanna start moving him early before we lose that money.
Right.
So that there's not a big budget cliff the following year. Once we head into FY '25, it'll be, okay, we've got these 3 coaches. We, principals, central office administration, think they're valuable. How does it make sense to fund them?
So that's a good question. Are there any building-based interventionists that are ESSER funded?
Not ESSER funded, we have
All
them
the
in
ESSER
CFP.
CFP, right,
Yeah.
okay.
All of the ESSER money that's spent at the SU level, right? Nobody
Yeah, that's what I was-
building.
Yeah, except for the bonuses, which were,
You're talking about for personnel then?
Personnel.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm talking personnel.
Personnel dollars.
I'm asking, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
yeah, okay.
universal meals, the legislature passed a requirement for universal meals for this school year. It had a 1-year funding source. We were already at universal meals, so it was kind of, for us this year, it's free money, because we were doing it anyway.
Right.
They are looking for a permanent funding source for that. If they are not successful, I would assume the SU board is gonna say, we don't wanna change how we're doing meals, and then that cost will come back into our budget. If the legislature says, yeah, we wanna keep universal meals and we're just gonna take the money out of the ed fund, it means there's gonna be more pressure on the tax rate, kind of spread out across the state. So, there will be some impact of that. My gut tells me that that'll be a May or June decision on the legislature's part, so we will probably have already put this budget to bed
Okay.
before we know the answer. And then finally, I'm sending out the transportation contract bid in the next week or so. And I am anticipating that will come back significantly higher than it has in the past.
Right.
Given gas and difficulty in hiring people.
Diesel is finally getting on.
Yeah.
Enrollment projections, this, I'm just gonna blow through, it'll be there. We'll probably spend a little bit of time on it in your public meeting, but everything up until 2022 is real numbers, and everything beyond that are projections based on kind of gain-loss ratios for each school, for each grade, and kind of where your bubble classes are and when they graduate. A few other things that I'm looking at. You settled your teacher collective bargaining agreement last April, March. So this will be the first year that we're budgeting for those increases. So when we go into the December meeting and you're looking at department by department or individual by individual, you're going to see larger than normal increases because of that settlement. We will be negotiating with your support staff starting in a couple of months. It's unlikely that'll be settled before the budget is warned, so we will have to kind of take the temperature of where that's going and try to budget enough money for the following year. Health insurance premium increases are around 12.5%. We will have a more solid number before your budget is final, but they said it was between 12 and 12.7, so I can't imagine it's going to go any lower than that, and I don't think the rate setting board is likely to go higher. They are scrutinizing the hospitals' rates. If they drop the hammer on the hospitals, it maybe would come down a little bit, but this is not out of line with what we've seen for the last 10 years. You may have some, maybe picking you for a little intel on that. I've not looked at the current 8th grade compared to the current 12th grade, but each year we look at those numbers to try to predict whether your high school revenue is likely to be similar or go up or go down.
Okay.
And then finally, as I mentioned last month, now that we have a district-wide facilities manager, we have a lot of projects identified that need work, and so we're going to need to start figuring out what we want to budget for in terms of the general fund as opposed to the sliding money into the capital reserve on the good days. And I think going into the next 3 years with those increases from 127 and 173, now's the time to kind of introduce to your voters the idea that we want to do some regular capital planning.
Has there, when we went to that capital planning, any tip on the legislation putting money into capital improvements?
It's on the table, it's been on the table every legislative session for years, so it is.
Tracked.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's how many ways they're gonna split $1 is really what it comes down to, is what's the priority. But there's a lot of pieces pulling on this. One is PCBs, others are regulatory, they're looking at the ed quality standards and they're looking at how are they going to monitor ed quality standards, and I think facilities are gonna be a piece of that now, so it's all connected in some ways, so I don't know if that will impact whether or not it's more palatable for them to invest in facilities work or not.
Gotcha.
And also how they invest is going to matter. So if they could say, there's a fund that you can actually access to fix your buildings when you find that they have PCBs. The administration might have a very different approach. They're certainly at least giving good lip service to tech centers, and so it may be driven towards tech centers. They're also talking a lot about consolidation, so it might be, hey, if you're going to close 3 middle schools and make one, there's the construction aid for that. And we'll see what comes out of the legislature, because you've got people pulling in different directions on the same idea of how to spend money.
Okay.
So staffing changes, and if you look at the handout that I sent and passed around, really I've just shown you FTEs. I have not talked at all about salaries. And this is the first cut at projection for staff members in each of your 5 buildings for FY24. I've had one meeting with each of the principals. I'll own any mistakes on this. There's a lot of back and forth, and the last 2 years especially have been sort of wiggy in the staffing department, so I feel like we're lucky when we know all the people who are in our buildings when payday rolls around, much less know who we need next year. It'll generally go through by function, and I am working on making this a little more reader-friendly in terms of the different categories, but it follows generally pre-K instruction, regular instruction, then some of your student support categories, instructional support categories, and then your administration and your buildings.
Why are like the paras blocked differently? Like, you know what I mean? Like Enosburg Elementary.
I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
So it, the account code, that third column is a code based on the type of people we pay. So teachers are in a bucket, parent educators are in a bucket, clerical support's in a bucket, custodian and IT support is in some bucket, principals are in their own bucket. And so it's breaking it out by those buckets.
How are they different?
What do you mean?
So how is this section of paraeducator different than this section of paraeducator?
It's probably a different school.
No. I don't think so. Is it?
Page 2 and 3 is what you're in.
Page 2 and 3.
So give me some names.
So like we have like Ashley Bernard, Bailey Burnell, right, that section.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden we have other people in the building.
Yep.
And then we have paras again on that bottom of 3. Like why are they different?
Special ed versus regular ed. And that's some of the one of the things I'm trying to do is to give you some verbal descriptions rather than a long string of numbers.
Yeah, I see, okay.
And the verbal description would have told you that. But yeah, so
Right.
pre-K is separate from K-12, and then special ed is separate from regular.
And remind me again about moving into SU or not.
So we have moved paraeducators who are in those contained programs into the SU.
Okay.
And then we have moved paraeducators who have that higher level of credentialing to the SU.
To the SU.
Just the BTs,
Just the BTs, so
the behavior technicians, yeah.
So in your local budget are still your general ed paraeducators, so that'll be people who are in the planning room, or people who are in the pre-K room, or in a classroom but not tied to special ed
Okay.
kiddos. And then your special ed paras are those who are not at that high level one-on-one intervention with you.
Okay.
And so you can see up on the screen, budget to budget, each of the schools is proposing a slight decrease, but that is masked by all those paraeducators going to the supervisory union. So I'll kind of walk you through school by school where I think we're ended up. At Enosburg Elementary, we are talking about adding a new interventionist position, and that would be somebody moving over from grants, which is where you're currently funding those federal grants. There's a little bit of movement on technology support, and those are actually fractions of 3 people that are coming from the high school to the elementary school, and that's really a function of trying to better track their time, or kind of redefine where their time needs to be spent, supporting both schools. We've taken out an NCSS school-based behavioral consultant out of the budget. It's one that we haven't been able to fill, so that's coming out. And then a shift in time from special ed to general ed for one of your pre-K teachers, based on the duties she's actually performing. At the high school, Enosburg Falls High School, there is a switch. Lisa Besso had been doing some work at Richford High School in the past, and so we had her split between the two budgets, moving that back to Enosburg High School full-time, which is more accurate. Matt is proposing rounding up the halftime PE teacher to full-time. We've also got a budget to budget increasing another PE teacher who was kind of lost in the Joseph transition. So it's somebody that you've had filled in your building, but wasn't in your budget.
Can I say something about that? So I think that at the high schools, it's really hard to have it exactly accurate between the two buildings, because like, I think it depends year to year. Like, this year, the whole Spanish teacher's in our budget, but I knew Enosburg didn't have anybody, so we're making it work so that Enosburg, so in reality, a little piece of our Spanish teacher is serving Enosburg kids. And I think, depending upon how the math classes go, even though they're all in my budget or the Richford budget or all in the Enosburg budget, the reality is they could be serving kids in both schools.
Right.
So, and I think this is a guess, but it's really hard to be 100% accurate on that.
It is a guess, and it doesn't matter anymore in terms of setting your high school tuition and billing out your tuition towns, because it's a combined school rate. So we do try to make it as accurate as possible in the budget, but yeah, if it's really fractional, we may not worry about tracking that in the current year. Proposing the addition of a new global studies position. Is Matt still on? Matt, feel free to jump in on that if I don't have the verbiage right.
Morgan, are you looking for me to chime in?
If you want to.
It's mostly related to the number of students doing flexible pathways at Academy and ELOs, and it's currently a pretty heavy load for the existing teacher. Whether we would need to fill it will depend a little bit on the schedule that we have for next year. If it's the current schedule, we would need some more social studies support.
And again, this is coming up with a plan. Obviously, in all the buildings, those plans change depending on who comes back and who doesn't. If you take a look at the document that I handed out on page 5, just want to call your attention to the top of that page, the first section. So this is the Enosburg High School direct instruction section, and you'll see that there are 4 to-be-hired positions there. Mm-hmm. As you're looking through this at home, just know that those aren't necessarily new positions. So the science teacher and the Spanish teacher are both positions that we've not been able to fill this year. Right. And so they're just sitting out there. And the same with the interventionist position at middle school. I had mentioned shifting some of the tech support from the high school to the elementary school, so that drops the numbers a little bit at Enosburg Middle High. And then they are also cutting out an NCSS position that they have not been able to fill. And I think the new reality is that those positions are extremely hard to get filled. At Richford Elementary, the big drop is primarily because we were housing most of the paraeducators in those in Michelle's programs in their budget, and so kind of a big shift away from there. In terms of your instructional staff, they had hired a full-time guidance teacher this year when the shared guidance teacher was lost to Montgomery Elementary. So we're catching up with that in the budget. They've been unable to fill the .6 librarian position, proposing putting that up to full-time. Hopefully that will make it more attractive. Proposing the addition of a counselor, and that is actually replacing an NCSS position in the budget that we're not able to fill, and so that's kind of more of a swap than a new position. And then there's a small fractional shift of a custodian that was shared with Richford High School. We're moving a larger portion of them to the high school to more accurately reflect where their time is spent. At Richford High School, there's really not much changing in terms of instructional staff. We mentioned the portion of Lisa Besso going back to Enosburg High School. That is offset by pulling the remaining portion of a grant-funded position into the local budget. Tara Ryan is, I think, 3/4 time this year in the local budget, and we're gonna bring her in full-time to the local budget next year. Again, loss of paras, primarily going to the supervisory union. We made the shift to make that athletic director position full-time. We did that this year, so the budget is catching up from that. And at the moment, we've got an additional custodial position in the budget, which I think is still being discussed, but in this draft, we've got an additional 1.0 there.
Well, it is an additional, it's making it full-time, a part-time person full-time, maybe.
Cold Hollow, no changes to humans. They've been pretty stable, don't have paraeducators to worry about. And then, so that overall shift in FTE for the district as a whole is a drop of 15. I think it's about 20 to 25 paras kind of moving from those 4 schools to the supervisory union. So it's a slight increase in terms of actual programmatic and counseling staff primarily.
Great.
And so this is the point in the process, without looking at any real numbers yet, where you get to say, whoa, we're concerned about our budget and we don't think kids should have all that counseling, or we think there are some serious needs in some of the schools and we want you to explore backfilling that, or we really think both of our high schools should have robotics program and putting 2 robotics teachers in each building. We kind of want to have those big directional changes on the table now so that we can bring back the impact of that in December.
So,
And it's okay not to have any of those things.
how many interventionists are there currently in Richford Elementary?
There is half-time math, a full-time language arts. There's supposed to be 2 full-time language arts, but one is half-time classroom teacher this year.
Okay. With the understanding that if you filled the classroom teacher, that they would go back to full-time intervention?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's
And
grant funded.
Yeah, and then we do have a new full-time math interventionist this year.
You do?
So 1.5 math
1.5 math.
and currently 1.5 literacy, but it should be
Potentially
2. It
Okay.
should be 2. It's supposed to be 2.
And Enosburg Elementary has, you said you're moving over 1 to an interventionist, so you have 2?
Out of grant fund.
Right.
So, I have 2 literacy right now, one's in grant funds.
Okay.
And then, math, I have 1, and she's in our general pair. We have an open position that we were, looking for another interventionist. We ended up using, the micro-credentialed para. So the potential would be to fill the position that I had last year.
So, to fill, if you filled the position, that would give you 3 literacy? No.
No,
2?
just 2.
Just 2. And 1 math?
2 if I can get a certified teacher for it.
Gotcha. Okay.
The days of being able to answer those questions easily
I
are
know.
gone.
Exactly. Well, if I move and if I select and then I take, right, no, I got it.
I think the challenge that all of them have been facing with both districts, with not being able to find
Yeah.
classroom teachers is who do you pull? And so I think we will have a lot of money left over in our federal grants because we've had to pull people out of those positions into classrooms in a couple of schools.
It's extra hard too because the intervention requires a higher skill set to target a greater need that's identified, and we used to be able to find people with that specific training, and now we're not getting applicants with that, so we're either hiring teachers who don't have an interventionist license, getting visually licensed while they take the coursework for that, like the added levels of like breaking down reading and breaking down math, but it's so hard to find people with those specialty areas anymore.
Sure. I was just asking because if our board goals are literacy and math, and looking across the district, if it's equitable, right? That's why I was asking who has what. Any temperature on staffing? Is there anything that's kind of raising any? No, you're good.
I have a wonder.
Yeah, what's your wonder?
So I think that we could do better in the arts, and what we don't have is theater. And we have a beautiful, amazing auditorium. Sorry, surprise. Didn't talk to you about this before. He loves to pull things out of the air. We have a beautiful auditorium, and we have kids in both high schools that could really benefit from doing something like this. And if we're talking about creating schools where everybody feels like there's a place for them and they feel a deep sense of belonging, I think that we should look as deeply at what we're offering academically as we are in the arts. And just something I'd like to throw out for us to consider. Is there a way to share?
What's the prospects out there though for?
There is a really good one.
The prospects
Well,
out there?
I tried to get him last year for both of us, but we can only offer a part-time position.
If there was full-time, he would do it.
Right,
Well,
and
let's
I
not
would-
talk people, let's talk fun.
I know, but the
Easy
reality
does it,
is,
Tiger.
if you don't have the skill set and you don't have the people, you have to put it in the budget, you're not gonna find anybody.
We just can't.
Well, I know sometimes you get, the English teacher that also does, right? So there might be,
Well,
but a straight drama.
Oftentimes, they would do maybe global citizenship,
Right.
and so what I was thinking, if Matt has that global citizenship position in there, it might not be he might not have a need for a full person, and we might be able to share the person for theater.
So I know that I can speak as you do your shell game.
Can I jump in? I don't know when to jump in.
Sorry.
Do it now.
Okay, thanks. I do have our new English teacher she has said to me that she is super close to being able to get a theater, endorsement. So with some support, that might be something that she could pursue.
Yeah. I support the arts for sure.
I'm also really open to Beth's suggestion about sharing, really anything, but I don't know who this theater person is. I couldn't follow all the discussion, but that would be a wonderful asset to both schools. I would support that too.
And I know that the Opera House used to fill that gap a little bit when they would have like theater camps and winter theater camps, but I know that hasn't happened as of late. So yeah, there is a need for kids who that's their passion for sure. Yeah, I'm all for it.
Agree, 100%. But while we're talking wish list, I think another couple of things that come to mind for me is more opportunities for tiering, right? So when we're talking about interventions for students, especially special education, what about those children who are gifted and talented, and really also taking the time to pull them out and work with them on things. So I know Jen and I talked a little bit about that, and I think there's some opportunities that exist where that's concerned within our schools, and then also character building programs. So I know we're doing some social emotional programs, but also there's some really good ones out there for character building and really incorporating those lessons, especially at the elementary school level. So probably more long-term on the second one.
And we should get you, obviously we should get you a lot of things because we're about to throw everything at you. But our SEL standards, I think you will actually find that a lot of that is about that, you know, kindness, working collaboratively with others who might have different opinions, like all those things. But yes, for sure. I love that idea too. And I'm just thinking, you know, you're talking about the ELO, which stands for Education Extended Learning Opportunities.
Yeah.
And then so it would be so interesting, right? You're talking about the numbers being pretty significant to the point where you might need another position. Wouldn't it be interesting if we could kind of tier that out? If you were saying, like, you know, in an elementary, could a kid do an extended learning opportunity? Neat. I like it. How's that for direction?
Do you want clearer direction? Do you want clearer direction?
No.
Okay.
I got yours,
Sorry.
and I can check in with principals on the other.
Morgan loves when we just throw like brainstorming
Yeah.
ideas at him and
And
then we
add
look good on
this.
paper, Morgan.
And a pony.
That was fun.
I want the whole horse, not just the pony.
Yeah, I want to do you have anything else, Morgan, before we move?
No, I don't.
Okay. Before we go into Lynn, I wanted to introduce you an introduction.
My name's Devin. I'm on the board. I'm looking forward to working with you. I did hear that you're working with Cigna?
Yes.
Okay. I was able to hear a little bit,
Oh, while you were in the car.
yes,
Yeah.
but my gas pedal was making a lot of noise trying to get here, so a little bit of it was muffled.
Yeah. And I appreciate your help, Ross. Yeah, thank you very much. I was like, what are we gonna do? Thank you for coming through.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now that brings us to Lynn.
Okay. So, in your board packet, I don't think there are any changes from what I sent to you, so we'll start with personnel. There's nothing under the hiring section that needs your action, it's all informational.
Okay.
Polly, are you okay with board members just reading it, or did you want me to say it out loud?
I think I'm okay with just reading it.
Okay. So those are your support staff hires. We have one resignation, but it's really an SU position under resignations. There are several open positions still, as we discussed earlier in the meeting. We have several positions that we have not been able to fill this school year. So I think in terms of classroom, are we still looking for grade 4, Jen?
Nope,
For this
we're all
year?
set.
Okay, all right. I think I think Kelly, we would love to have a librarian, but we have not had success there.
Yep.
We have a need for a long-term kindergarten substitute teacher at Richford Elementary School. And then a lot of what I see there is behavior technicians, interventionists, things like that. Certainly paraeducators.
Evening custodian.
Yeah, evening custodians.
Snowboarding coach?
Yes.
Huh?
So we have with lots of things available. If
Yes.
people are interested in working in FNESU, we would love to have you. What's that?
What
Ooh.
happened to this number? Oh, I can't do it.
He's building
With all
a
my,
house.
with all my free time.
I know.
He's building a house and too busy.
I'll kick him out of yours. I would if I could, but I certainly don't have the
I
time.
know, I hear you. And I've never snowboarded, so that's over.
So I want to talk a little bit about our student section. So there's action in this section. I put a note in there for you to have it in advance. So we have this elementary school choice policy. So kids in the ERUUSD district can choose whether they're going to attend Enosburg or Richford. So we have a deadline in the spring, and anyone can make that switch as long as there's room in the receiving school, and they do it by the deadline. However, when there's a change in circumstance for the family and they're moving mid-year, we use that as another window for them. So if, right now we have one family moving. So when they're moving, they have that opportunity to choose. So we have a Richford family who is moving to Enosburg. This involves middle school students. So they're still eligible for elementary school choice because of this change in circumstance. So in our elementary school choice policy, we have said transportation is not provided. That families have to provide their own transportation. So since we built that policy and the procedures, we have added on, in terms of our busing, because of our special programs, we've made some changes to our bus routes so that they're going kind of both ways on both ends of the day. So given those recent changes between Richford and Enosburg, we now have that opportunity for transportation. So my question is, I would not recommend door-to-door transportation. However, will the board consider granting access for students who are exercising school choice between Enosburg and Richford Elementary, as long as that transportation route already exists, as long as those students follow the school bus route and the family understands that there might be a timing issue at either end of the day, because the timing of those routes is not perfect.
And I would also add to that, as long as there's room.
As long as there's room, yeah.
And these are middle school kids who would like to stay. But I think it's the same thing for high school, is you provide your own transportation, but I have always, like, for example, if there was a change of circumstance for a high school kid in Enosburg, which there has been, and they ended up moving to Richford and they're a senior and we let them finish their year, I've always let them ride the Cold Polo bus back and forth. So I've kind of done it past practice just because it's in the best interest of the kid not have to change school their senior year of high school, you know?
That makes sense. And I would like to be super clear, for anybody who's watching or whatever, that we have these policies within district. And so sometimes when families want to go to choose another district, unfortunately the policy doesn't reflect that. But this ask is within the district, so we can grant that.
And it's within something that's already existing.
Right, I mean, the buses would run even if they were empty.
Right.
Like, one way or the other, because they're doing like multiple drop-offs. So we're running the buses.
Right.
Full or empty, they're going back.
So that's why I feel like in your motion, if you're agreeable, I would like you to say within the existing route. We're not gonna add stops on a route, but if they can get to where the route is originating, we can get them to their school, and they wouldn't have to have private transportation.
Right, because like, if these kids would have to walk to Enosburg High School to get on the bus to come to Richford.
Right.
Yep.
So we're not gonna stop and pick them up.
Right.
I would say within the existing route, within room, and with proper behavior, because I think behavior should come into play here.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, is it a motion that needs to be made, correct?
Yes, that you approve this movement, yeah. Or that the student is
Can
granted.
have access to transportation.
Yes.
So
Within the
as-
existing route with good behavior and appropriate room.
And parents
Is this for
understand
this-
the impact on time.
Is this just for
Correct.
this one circumstance, or is this gonna
No.
be it's gonna be a new policy, right?
Yeah,
Or a
it
policy.
falls under the procedures of how we're applying that policy, and this conversation Beth and I had was that we have told others no before, because
Right.
that's what our procedure said, so I didn't wanna say yes in this circumstance unless there was actual change that we brought to the board.
But I have and am saying yes to,
A co-follow situation.
yes. for
So
co-
basically,
well, for-
if a
yeah.
transportation route exists, you
Right.
know, then we are allowing students to
I just thought it
utilize
was
that.
ridiculous
Yeah,
to
no.
say no to a kid if the bus was going, but really, that's not what the policy says.
Right,
Yeah.
The policy says provide their own transportation.
Right.
Well, I think it's honestly foolish not to, as long as we're not made responsible for the child getting to the bus either. So if they walk from point A to point B and get hurt, who's responsible? As long as we have it in there that the bus route is not to change and that they're responsible for their own, you know, getting there.
Right.
And I also would like the out of having, I mean, if that kid's being totally, and I don't suspect this would ever happen, but it's good to have that. If the kid's being obnoxious and creates an issue, and then we have an issue of the kid being knocked off the bus, we don't want the parents to come back and say, well, we were dependent upon this, and now this child's been kicked off the bus,
Right.
and I can't get them there.
Right.
So that's true of any child.
That's correct.
We're not required to provide transportation unless it's transportation written into an IEP, so we
Right.
follow the bus policy.
But I can picture that becoming more of a problem because now you have more of a distance.
Right. Be
But-
clear about
Wow.
your motion.
It's shorter than some of our bus routes.
Honestly,
true. Oh, you know, a 10-minute
There's-
ride
there's
down
truth to
105
that,
with no
yes.
stops is a lot less time than a lot of kids are on the bus.
So, I have a motion from Devin to allow the student to access transportation, the existing transportation route, barring, adequate space and appropriate behavior. Yes. So there's the motion. All in, oh, wait, first of all, does anybody have any questions or comments about it? No? Okay.
I would add something about making sure they understand the time, because like Cold Hollow, if they rode the Cold Hollow bus to Enosburg, they would get to Enosburg a half hour late and leave a half hour early, or something like that,
Right.
maybe close to an hour,
Right.
half hour. If they ride the bus that's coming to Richford, they get there about on time at the high school. It would be late to the elementary school. They'd get there about on time, but they leave about half hour early.
Right.
So that
So
they
they
need to
are-
understand that the timing isn't perfect if you wanna access it.
Right.
And one of the things that Beth and I talked about is some of the kids that are accessing this may need to access like an ELO opportunity to make up for some of that lost time, so they create some sort of independent.
Or they take an elective at the end of the day, or, you know, that, the way it works, our middle school kids go back to homeroom at the end of the day anyway for closing circle, so that's what they're missing. But if it was a high school kid, you'd wanna make sure their schedule was that, like, if they're missing an art class, that they can take the work home, or, you know, you
Right,
wanna
right.
set up their schedule and,
Yeah,
okay.
makes sense.
Just clarification, so it's one individual, or are we doing it for, because if we open up, the ones that are already doing it, they're gonna say, I wanna jump on this too.
Right.
Some
Yeah.
will,
Right.
some prefer, there are a lot of kids who'd rather ride to school with their parents.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
just like no one.
But yes, as long as the bus is going.
It may
Yeah.
be as long as there's space, it might be first come, first serve, and if the bus is full, like, can't make
There
it
aren't a
be
lot
more.
going back and forth.
It's not a huge number of kids.
Where I see it problematic for elementary is that it's different in terms of making up the work.
Yeah.
If a student is arriving a half hour late and leaving a half hour early, that's a tremendous impact on their day.
But that would be something that the parents would have to take into consideration along with the teachers. Because it may not be a full-time solution, it might be somebody's sick that day and that kid really needs a ride in. And that's the only way the kid's going to get into school, or their car's broke down, or, you know, it
Right,
just
right.
gives
When it's a-
access to that.
It's when it's a permanent situation, that could mean that a student misses their math for half an hour, 45 minutes.
I don't-
every
But
single
that
day.
should be a conversation with parents, in my opinion, saying this is not acceptable. Your child's gonna be failing math, you know, because they're gonna be missing a half hour every day, and it's not a to the school to have to work with that.
It's not that easy.
I don't really see it being a feasible solution for elementary. I agree with her. It's more like middle high that it's a solution for. Because with elementary, little kids, are they gonna come here and get on the bus? And then, I just see it requiring a level of independence to do that, which would almost require a middle or a high school student.
Can we specify middle or high school to avoid that issue? I mean, I wouldn't think that somebody would allow their 6-year-old to walk to begin with, but these days, that makes me question.
I mean, they might not walk, they might ride the bus into Enosburg and then hop on the bus to Richford.
Right.
It's not like they, you know what I mean?
Or they could be walked over by a parent.
Right. So,
So what's the difference in time on both ends?
It's perfect. What time do you start in the morning?
8 o'clock.
So we start about 8:10 for high school. The bus gets there about 8:10, right when we're doing morning announcements. And then in the afternoon, it leaves about 2:25.
so if they dropped off at the elementary school first, then they would get there by 8:10. When do they leave? Anyway, I don't know. But I don't know if we should, cross that bridge when we actually have an elementary request? Or should
Well,
we
I think
hammer that out now?
We might wanna hammer that out now, because
Yeah.
I'll be asked between now and December
Right.
if we don't.
So when does it leave Enosburg? Do we
Is
know?
that the one Shelley rides?
Yes.
So it gets here at quarter of, it does not get to the elementary school until about 8:25.
I don't think it
Oh.
picks up until at
Okay.
least quarter of.
It's
Quarter of. I
quarter
think
of,
it leaves
yeah.
Enosburg at about quarter of. That's what
I
I
think
They're
you could
loading
say
it.
middle high school.
There are,
I think
I agree.
there are
I
younger
agree.
kids on it, and there is a school staff who rides it.
Because
Right.
I'm worried that we're gonna have issues with the supervision
I
and the
think we are too.
transfer,
Right.
and it feels like a lot to ask,
Okay.
a first or second grader.
And we already have the students from Rise and TAPS writing that.
Yes.
So I think if we said middle high,
Middle high.
the
Okay.
problem is the middle school kids are included in the elementary policy, so you just have to specifically say middle high.
Right.
Okay.
Or specify a grade range.
Yes.
I think
Well, middle for both of you is
it's
6 through 8.
Yeah.
Eight.
Middle and high school. I'm fine with that. Are you fine with that?
I think we don't have to indicate high school, we can just make the high school happen, because that's more practice than procedure under Act.
Right. So I just say,
They
we say
fall
middle
under
school.
Yeah.
And that's what we already have, I've already done that for Enosburg High School kids with Cole Hall. We usually just talk at least the 3 of us just talk.
And
Okay.
steps.
Yeah.
So I'll add 6 through 8 into that.
Steps and taps,
Steps and taps, advice.
because they already are doing that.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, are you taking board minutes?
She is,
Oh,
no,
okay.
I have the designee though.
So we need to change the motion then, right? Okay, so I make the motion to support what the principals are saying.
Or is that
and
new
do the
this week?
6
Are you
through-
adding that to procedure?
We're adding it to procedure, I just wanted
Yeah.
the board to approve it.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to add to the transportation procedure for choice students to be for only middle and high school students between Richford and Enosburg.
I agree.
Okay, so Devin makes a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? There you go.
All right, each on to my next one, just name my
PCB testing update. We kind of went over that, didn't we? Oh,
no,
you-
different board.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm just gonna, this will be really quick. Say that, but I just lost my screen on my computer.
Well, we went over it when we were talking about facilities.
Yes,
Yeah.
you, kind of, you touched on it.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I just wanted to mention is I'm probably gonna be bringing PCB back to you at most of your meetings, because this is a big deal that we need to all be aware of. One of the things that we brought up the thing about Richford and Enosburg's testing. We've tried to get communication out to the community, and so we've sent that out globally as an SU, and Jen sent out a Kelly has sent out a testing letter. Jen's going to be sending out a testing letter to the community. One of the things that I just wanted to bring to this board is something I talked to the SU board about at the last meeting, is the idea of, is if we have a PCB problem in one of our schools, it's a problem for all of us. And we brought this to our leadership team, we did some tabletop talk discussions in October at leadership, and had the principals do some problem solving around how would we figure this out if we had a school that, you know, had a space that they couldn't use, or if they had a whole building that they couldn't use. What are all of the possible ways that we could solve for that? And what's clear is that our leaders automatically went to, we have to figure it out together. We have to look at all the resources no matter what district it is. So that's something I just want to keep bringing up, that if it happens in one of the ER schools, it doesn't mean that the NMV schools wouldn't be a part of the solution too. So I see this as being something that we all have to contend with. That's really all I wanted to say about that this month. I'm just informing the board that you have several administrators that are up for negotiation, so we'll ask you to, we can do this at the end if you'd like, go into executive with me and give me some guidance on my guardrails for negotiations there. In your board packet, I had information about the PASS assessment, and as I said, it was a beautiful connection to what the ladies shared about Enosburg Elementary School today, very closely tied to board goal number 1 around all students reading on grade level by the end of 3rd grade. The PASS assessment is something I'm going to bring back to you in hopefully December. It could possibly be January, depending on whether or not the PASS assessment is done. And that is all I have for you.
Okay. Next, we are going to go to the principal's report. We'll start with Kelly. Kelly, what do you got?
So everything in there is informational, but just a quick update on a couple of things. I'll just continue with the literacy theme for the evening. We too have had a real focus on literacy. I had a number of teachers that attended a workshop, week-long workshop this summer, and we've been doing a book study on conferencing with students, and so that has been sort of a deep dive this fall in conferencing with kids, and we have 2 staff meetings a month that are devoted to that. So one is a book study, and then one is bringing back information about what their conferences are looking like. Teachers are videotaping themselves and sharing that so that people can kind of pick them apart. Takes a lot of trust at that point with your colleagues to be able to do that. And it's just been interesting to listen to what teachers have to say about what they're learning about kids through the conferencing, and how they're able to get at the multiple levels, the broad range that a classroom has by conferencing with kids. So pretty excited about that, and that we've been able to just do that real deep focus on one aspect that we thought was going to get us a real big bang for our buck. And then the other thing is that we have 7 students from Cold Hollow that are with us every Friday morning, and that's been a lot of fun. Teachers have embraced them, and we're actively recruiting them. And I just fully believe in that whole, let's grow our own and help them to really see what our schools are like and what schooling is like. And so that's been great.
Cool. Beth.
So we've had several learning opportunities that were student-led this semester, or this quarter. We had our one group, our Teen Institute group, did a drug awareness slideshow. and they presented it to the high school in 2 groups and to all of the middle school groups. They did a great job. There's a photograph of that in there. Our public speaking group went to Richford Elementary School to do read aloud one afternoon or one morning. And then Mr. Hoyt's civics class and Miss Erickson's communication class invited in local candidates, and we had a forum. And so that was a afternoon filled with learning. And then we just had a lot of fun. We've had like a pep rally, a bonfire, a freshman reception, a middle school dance. So getting back to normal and having people in the building and doing fun things associated with school has been great.
Nice, love it. Jen?
Just quickly, it's all informational. We had student-led conferences, and they were really successful. We had a tremendous turnout, several classrooms at 100% attendance, and the others have plans on how to reach out to the parents. So we were extremely pleased with that, and parents were happy to be in, and it was focused on goal setting, which was really nice that now that we've gone trimesters, the report card wasn't as attached to it. So I think it really gave the kids a chance to say what they want to work on and where they want to go and what they've done so far. So it really was a great experience. And then I just wanted to comment on the ladies that spoke. Again, like with the foundations, it's a program, but the one thing that has been great, because we use the standards, but having that program that many of my teachers are talking about has given us consistency of vocabulary. And between our schools too, if I have somebody that moves to Richford, they're going to use the same vocabulary, which is huge, so they're not using different phrases for different things and then having to relearn everything. So that's been a huge asset, and many of my teachers have talked about that.
Neat. Rachel?
It's similar to Beth. It's been really nice to we've had a dance, we've had some fun stuff going on. It's been nice to see some of those things return to schools. Tomorrow night is the UVM Teacher of the Year Awards, so Dan, Clark, and I will be attending that ceremony tomorrow. And I forgot to add to my Safe and Healthy Schools that at the end of the month, we're having a presentation on nicotine, tobacco, and vaping from Amy Brewer in association with the Notch and Franklin County Caring Communities. They've been coming into lunches. Starting last week, they're coming in like once a week for the month to do some like activities, and they're giving away free stuff, which kids love. But like answering questions and doing some education around risks and healthy habits as a way to lead up to the presentation they're going to do the day before Thanksgiving break. So it's really timely, it's really it's very age appropriate, and it's connected to some other education they're doing in health class as well around healthy habits and that sort of thing. So looking forward to that.
I don't know. Not that I'm aware of. So
They're looking for a new place to put their ladders now that we tore our barn down, actually.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, yeah, right, there you go. Now we have Matt Webb.
Hi, so I have 2 things I want to highlight this month. One is that the work on our courtyard has begun. So students have been removing turf and laying down and grading crushed stone. They're going to be planting bulbs soon. And what's really cool is to see the collaboration that's going on. There's high school volunteers, there's students from pre-tech, and the JROTC program has begun to work on it too. So it's really cool to see kids out there sweating a little bit and transforming a space that I think has been neglected for a long time. And they're working great with Doug Lacrosse, our facilities director. which also is really cool to see. He was out there with the front loader moving around the stone the other day, and Jesse Allen, who you all, well, actually we've got some new board members, but Jesse Allen, who some of you met back in September, or August? No, September, is just beaming. And the fact that a student project is coming into fruition like this, it's really beautiful to see student initiative, to see the way others have joined in. You saw her presentation and the research she did and how to keep it sustainable and how to fund it. It's really pretty amazing. And I know you guys allocated some money for it, but at this point, it's not even clear to me that we're going to need to cash that check, so to speak. She's getting excited about selling bricks. If you donate $100 to the cause, you can get a brick. If you donate $500, it's very charming. It says, "We will find some other thing to put your name on." It doesn't quite say that, but it's just very sweet that she's looking at that as a possibility. I also mentioned in my report that the art classes are looking at putting some different artistic stuff up, possibly the barn quilts, which, although I've lived in Franklin County for a while, I am not a native, and so I didn't know what barn quilts were. They're those wonderful geometric patterns you sometimes see, particularly under the eaves of a pointed building. So that's pretty wonderful. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention was our JROTC program, which I just mentioned. I have never worked in a school with a JROTC program. There are 3 in Vermont. I guess one is at Essex. Can't remember where the third one is. And I didn't know exactly what to expect. And I am just tickled. I'm just delighted by the presence that they offer. I feel like it's a real gift to be one of the host sites for JROTC. They had one day last week was the first day they dressed up in their full dress uniforms, and they had the polished shoes, and they were really focused on looking good. Some of them got haircuts because they couldn't dress if they didn't have the haircuts. And just watching the pride with which they move around, but more important even than having nice uniforms and shiny shoes is the stuff that they do. So on Mondays and Wednesdays, they're in the classrooms. And on Tuesdays and Fridays, they do physical training. Tuesday is their lighter day. So today, that's why they were all with wheelbarrows moving crushed stone into the courtyard. And on Fridays, that's their more intense physical workout day. And then Thursday, they do community service. And they've done such a great job of it that one of our teachers has just become the community service point person for the whole school. And that is Lieutenant Colonel Bob Monette. He is absolutely phenomenal at connecting kids with service opportunities. And also Sergeant Luke Shipper, who just has a wonderful way with kids. And they have a way of elevating kids' leadership and role in the school, and not with a particular agenda, except for the students increasing in their own responsibility, well-being, and leadership. So the JROTC program has been a wonderful experience, completely new to me, and something I've really been impressed and delighted to see how it works in our school.
Nice, that's awesome. Are you gonna have like a ribbon cutting ceremony for the courtyard?
We might, I don't know if you know the artist, Christo, anybody, but we might drape it in all black on all 4 sides so no one can see it, and then we'll cut it away. No, I am sure we will have, I'm sure we will have a dedication ceremony. My guess is not till the spring, when the flowering plum tree will be in flower and a lot of the bulbs will be, also sprung to life. And maybe some of those bricks put down. And I'm excited to buy one. And Jesse has a form for you. I'll probably make those available at the front desk for anybody who wants to donate time or labor or money to get their name on a brick, or an organization can also buy a brick.
Matt, is that going out on your social media page so that community members can know about what's happening? I know some alumni in the area that would love to donate to a cause like this.
Okay, that's phenomenal. So the answer is yes, in the future tense, but I will let Maggie know to do that. It's a great suggestion.
It's been really fun to watch from above. too.
I
So
bet.
my office looks at the
Yeah.
courtyards.
I'd be
It's really
distracted
cool.
by that, it would be.
It is a
what's
bit
over there.
distracting,
Yeah.
but it's also really
Not
fun.
any more distracting than Dairy Day.
It is significantly less distracting than we're breaking things in terms of distracting there, yes.
Neat.
I think I did not put in there about the FFA and the P-TECH and Forestry Soils land judging competition. So I do want to report out that we went down to VTC, competed with a bunch of other schools, and took first place. Matter of fact, we had 16 out of the top 22. And,
Wow.
so we really dominated, so.
And that's in soils.
Yep, so nothing new for us, so we dominated.
What does that entail? Like
That entails looking at test pits and figuring out what the land is suitable for.
Oh,
So first they have to test whether it's clay or sand, and if it needs drainage, can you build a house there, is it
right,
for
development,
agriculture?
right.
So,
For bedrock.
or if it's bedrock, we had some students that were upset that they didn't find bedrock, so they planted bedrock into the hole, and they're like, we got it wrong because that's just a rock, and so,
Gotcha.
but anyway, that was,
I
so
went to
anyway.
the grocery store that night, and I think students think I know way more than I do about what's happening in some of the schools, and they said, did you hear about the soils competition? And I said, I did not. You don't have the results yet? And I said, no. And the person was so upset. It can't be bedrock if it's placed there. Bedrock just has to exist there.
Ledge, yeah.
So it was a wrong answer. I got it right, they got it wrong. So that was my visit to the grocery store.
So they're very passionate, they're very passionate. Other than that, we had our student-led conferences last week, and then we had our advisory board meeting. So we had anywhere from 5 to 9 employers and people involved in that. Really, some of the main things that came out of that was cell phones, get rid of them,
Yep.
keep them out of the schools, do not make kids problem solve face-to-face, and work. So we are continuing to have our no cell phone policy and stressing that as well as we can, as you put your cell phone down. Just kidding. The other thing is, a lot of them, it used to be the recent graduates were the ones that may not have had work ethic as entry-level employees. They are now finding that from 18 to 50-year-olds. The ones that people that are coming to the workforce are quitting after one paycheck, are not reliable, are not showing up. So everything that we're doing to help teach that work ethic and that dependability is great. And a lot of businesses are now having to give mentors to their new employees so they can handle criticism and feedback and all that stuff. So the workforce has changed greatly, and we are continuing to try to put out a great product for that. But you guys probably all have seen it in your areas too. So, but those are great. Like I said, we've had on lasagna, and we had a good turnout. Kelly was on the human services one with Kimball. So,
Nice.
and we'll do another one in the spring. So, the one in the spring we don't feed; they can have their meeting off-site. It's not as
Right.
sometimes that's more tentative if you have it at the Abbey, but regardless, it was a good night. So, thank you.
That sounds like a good one. Cool, all right, so that brings us to board business. We already did the school board member appointment. SU board representative report. Let me pull it up, I always do. Let's see, should I try? What was the last month? It was October. Wait. Okay. So, do you remember, Sarah? Let's see. Michelle Irish, gave a presentation on, let's see, SEL, yes, adult SEL, exactly. That they were going to do a social emotional learning with a focus on social emotional learning for the adults, and that way the adults could better provide the skills for students if they themselves received SEL instruction. Let's see. What's happened? Financial report. Transportation contract, which Morgan talked a little bit about today. They're rebidding that, with rising costs and fuel and the shortage of workforce. Chances of that contract increasing are pretty likely. The audit contract, are we bidding out, or are we going with the same audit firm? I can't remember.
Same firm.
Same firm, that's right. And then, oh, here's a question. So, okay, we also talked about, support staff negotiations coming up, which we need to talk about in a second. And recruitment and retention strategy plan. Lynn, you can talk about this more if you want, but talked about, we looked at data regarding recruitment and retention and tried to come up with a plan on how best to keep our teachers and recruit new ones. And then there were board reports. And then we presented Lynn with her superintendent evaluation. And we went over the VSBA resolutions, which were voted on at the VSBA conference. Am I forgetting something? That was about it. So next on our agenda also is, our next regular scheduled meeting is December 13th, which will be at Richford. What we do need to clear up, which we were going back through the minutes and we can't quite find, is who was on the are you on the negotiations? You're on negotiations, and you're support staff, or you're not support staff?
Either one.
It was Rick was on it.
Rick was on it.
So at the SU meeting. Well, no, we'll need somebody from this one.
From the support
Yes,
staff.
that's right. So you can find somebody tonight.
Well, it's just, yeah, we don't specify support staff or teacher, but the teacher contract's good for another 2 years.
Teacher contracts are good for 2 years, and I can only be on the support staff negotiations. Yeah.
So they're two different things, the teachers and the.
Support staff, 2 different.
We get to do it all over again, Sarah.
But not with, the same people? Or is it?
Some,
Okay.
but not the teachers, it'll be support staff members
Okay.
that come with some of that help.
But she's asking, does she
Same
sit on
people.
both?
Oh.
She's
The other
asking,
way.
do I sit on both? That's what
That's
she
what
was
I'm asking.
asking, yeah. Anybody have any desire to sit on the negotiate contract with support
When,
staff?
like, so I'm not
Yeah.
used to this, how often, what is?
So we're probably starting in January, February, I think
Okay.
is where we had landed, correct, Morgan?
Yep, we might do a little pre-work in December.
Yeah, so we do a little bit of pre-meeting. Usually that's with whoever is gonna be the chief negotiator. We'll work with Morgan and I to just to make sure that our ground rules are agreed upon between the two sides. We do some pre-work with the support staff negotiating team to make sure when we enter the negotiations, we're ready to go.
So that
So
would
we
not
would-
require the board member?
No, just
Right.
whoever the chief negotiator is from that team. And then we will schedule 3 working sessions. We usually do 5 to 6 as a working session for the board and administration, and then 6 to 8 will be the negotiating session on each of those nights. Our goal is always to try to get it done in 3 nights. I won't even finish that thought, but the hope is to get it done in 3 nights, or less, yeah. Does that sum it up?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that would be the time commitment, 3,
Sort of.
You get
5
dinner.
to 8, 3 if everybody agrees.
Feed you every time and from a different local restaurant.
So this would be easier comes.
Anybody?
What?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
happy to jump on and.
Okay.
Do it for the peanut butter pie.
Yes.
How many do we need?
Choose.
Beth wants to do
They need 2, right?
I can do it.
I know.
Or 2 from each board.
I don't wanna do it anyway.
Oh, 2 from each board, so it would be a KUA and an NMB person.
No, no.
Oh,
Kukua and Sarah and John and Mary. Or
no, 2, so, but you're doing,
you want 2 from
Support.
this board.
wait,
I did teachers.
teachers and support staff or both on both?
Both on both.
Both on both?
Okay.
That's not, she's like, that's not what I signed up for. I thought it was 1 and 1. Okay.
So the teachers only for another few.
It wasn't,
Right,
it
2 more
didn't,
years.
that's not how it used to be,
Well, we split sometimes if somebody had a conflict, like
like myself.
if Kevin couldn't do support staff because his wife is a support staff member.
And I can do
You could not do
teachers.
teachers, so that's how we ended up sometimes splitting. So
Gotcha.
you could do support staff, he could do teachers.
Gotcha.
And they're not both taking place in the same time frame. It sounds like.
Correct.
Okay.
But teachers have a contract for another 2 years, so you'll just be
Yeah.
negotiating the support staff.
Which, and that comes around every 2 or 3 years, support staff.
Well,
Depends on how you
it
set
could be a
it.
year contract, it could be a 2-year contract.
Here's the beautiful part, Sarah. Every year you have to reorganize your board,
Yeah,
and at every March meeting, you get to decide who's on what committee.
yeah, I
So
remember
in
that.
March, you
Good
can
job.
nominate someone else.
Before it comes back up. That's funny, okay.
Okay.
Get the next new person.
Yes. It's even better when they're not here anymore. We're like,
That's right.
maybe
That's
Rick
right.
would do it. Rick would be
I know.
here.
Never miss the reorg meeting.
I know, don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay, and that brings us to, wait, no, that's in our agenda.
We
So
probably
wait,
want a
just-
motion for the negotiation committee.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to appoint Sarah and Akua to the support staff negotiations.
I'll make the motion.
Moore has made the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? So moved. And then that brings us to, wait, did I lose my?
So
Wait,
Polly, while you're looking at that one question, so
Yeah.
I'm assuming we're gonna get some type of outreach saying, here's when the meetings are.
Yes.
definitely.
And if something happens and you can't make it, I'll jump in and help,
Okay, can we have an alternate?
okay?
I would
What?
like to know that before we start negotiations. It would be hard to have people in and out. Do you
Well,
know
no,
what I mean?
just like, oh, I see what you're saying.
Between now and
No,
January, if someone needs to
if
step up.
something comes up and you're not able to jump in by the first one, I'm not saying like she's gonna miss the second meeting,
Right.
I'll jump in.
Oh,
As long
okay.
as somebody could be there for,
The whole
Correct.
time.
Yep.
So if there's a conflict.
Yep, I can do that if there's a conflict with anybody. Although I would recommend it not be both of us new, cause I
Right.
don't have a brain for that stuff, so.
You might not even know.
never know.
Exactly.
I go with strictly common sense and that's it, and sometimes it works and sometimes not so much, so.
Common sense is good.
Future agenda items. Anybody got any ideas? No? Okay. Hearing none?
I just want there to be more meeting. I just want it longer.
Why?
Being funny.
Future agenda.
Being sarcastic.
I'm tired.
I'm sorry, it's a long day.
Yeah, and so hearing none, I would entertain a motion to, what? Oh, that's right, we have to move into executive and talk about negotiations. So at this point, we don't need any, any administrators except for Morgan. And I would entertain a motion to go into executive.
I would.
Okay. Sarah makes the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So we are in executive, no motions pending. Or is there a motion? Sorry, I keep.
No
thinking
motion.
around. No motions pending. So, a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
Sarah makes a motion to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Me.
Done. Oh, wow.